Okay, and we're live. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Doki Doki Daikaiju Podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Brian Sudol.
I'm Sean Emmerich.
And today we have a new topic for you. And the last episode, we covered Godzilla Fest that took place in Osaka for the opening of the new Godzilla store. And we did cover a little bit of the Showa series. And to follow up on that, we're going to dive into the series that took place during our youth. So, but before we get doing with that, let's do, what kind of new stuff did we get? So, Sean, on your end, did you get any new stuff?
I haven't really got any new stuff since the last time. So, I mean, I've got a couple things to show, I guess, when we talk about the Heisei era,
Okay.
But it's not new stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, too, is a lot of stuff's been delayed because of the Corona situations. I think some people are finally getting things they ordered almost a year ago, so it's all clogged up.
Yeah, it's doing that.
But in general, though, I mean, other than the last video I uploaded on YouTube with Titanosaurus, I haven't really gotten any new figures, but I'm certified with the nano blocks. I'm just going nuts with these things. I finished Osaka Castle. That was like 2,400 pieces. I got Thunder Gate. This is Kaminarimon in Asakusa in Tokyo. This is an Inari Shrine. But I had to go with the piece of resistance. I got the deluxe Himeji Castle.
That's pretty awesome.
5,200 pieces. So I have a project for this winter. And now usually in Aomori we get a lot of snow, so we don't go to a lot of places. But
hasn't started yet, but it'll get here eventually.
The funny part is you think you're out of the woods like towards the end of January, but then February happens, and it's just like, no. But, So I think I mentioned it before, but Himeji Castle's in Hyogo, so Kobe is there also. But it's like one of the coolest castles in Japan.
Yeah.
But that's basically what we've been up to. But any new Godzilla-related news that you've read?
Godzilla-related news.
Or rather, lack thereof.
we got like 3 seconds of Godzilla versus Kong footage. Yeah, that was literally it. You just reenacted the whole thing. And there was IDW Publishing had some kind of deal with Toho.
That's right. The new comics, they showed like one image of it, but some reports are saying it's like kid oriented, but I don't know. We'll see it when we see it.
Yeah, I mean they did a whole bunch of comic book series for Godzilla in the past, so it'll probably be something along those lines again. And possibly games, because they were talking about, because IDW also has a game division, does like board games and card games and that sort of thing. So yeah, not video games, but like actual physical media. So that should be interesting to see.
Definitely, because they did like the past few years or so, they had the trading card games. They try to, I think, translate, because Bandai in Japan put out the Battle Spirits game, and kind of like it's a trading card battle game. And it was at Target or other websites in the States you can get it, and it was kind of like a reconfigured version of it.
Yeah.
And they did the Godzilla.
I actually have it. It's in the closet back there.
Yeah, I think everyone's just been we've been social distancing, so it's like no one's been able to get together to have like a group like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that. So yeah, we'll have to try it sometime.
Yeah, I have the Japanese ones, the Battle Spirits, and I just never could figure out how to play it. Or
yeah, I think mine's in English, so that'll help.
that does help. But I mean, kanji's hard enough to read. Never mind special rules.
Right.
But
I'm
trying to think of too. The not even a trailer. I mean, we still haven't gotten one. But
no, we haven't got the trailer. Rumor is that it's supposed to be attached to Wonder Woman 1984, so we might be getting it sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, because that was it's due to release on Christmas Day, the 25th.
For America, it's coming out Christmas Day on theaters and HBO Max, and then some international markets are getting it December 16th. But I don't know if they'll attach a trailer for that, or if they'll wait for the American release.
Yeah, it's remains to be seen.
Or if it'll even happen. Yeah, that's the thing. And then I guess we should also talk about that because that happened since then, the HBO Max
that's
situation.
People were speculating on it. They were like, is it going to hit theaters?
Yeah.
Is it going to go right to streaming or physical media? It's still around, but I think streaming has definitely taken over. Same with music. But now, before we dive fully into that, though, the 3 or 4 seconds of footage that they did show, that was at the Tokyo Comic Con experience that happened this year.
Yeah, it was either that or the thing in Brazil, because there's a CCXP is like a Comic Con sort of thing that's in Brazil, I believe. It's like Sao Paulo. And I think that might have actually been where it started, but because I think that was last week or something.
Okay.
So
now,
that might be a bit.
I mean, everyone
either way.
I hear you. But like everyone's like with bated breath, like waiting on Godzilla vs. Kong. But I think the battle we've all seen in this past week is Warner Brothers versus HBO, or it was a Legendary rather versus
Legendary. Yeah.
And
because they just dropped this without telling anyone. They didn't tell the theaters that they were doing this. So AMC Theaters has like some dispute with Warner Brothers right now. They told Legendary literally 30 minutes before they released the press release.
That's rough. But I think
I don't.
AMC's been hurting really bad. I think they actually
he's like on the verge of closure. Yeah.
Because I think, AMC, they said they were going to stop showing Universal films because of something that happened.
Yeah, they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. So.
But because I don't know all of the catalog that's coming from Universal, but I do know that Fast and Furious, the next one, that's going to be one of the bigger ones. But I know that AMC was miffed over the fact that Invisible Man went to streaming right away, and something else did too. But
something like that. They were doing a lot of like VOD stuff.
But that's like I was reading too. Was at Regal Cinemas? I think they're just shutting down shop. I mean, completely.
Yeah. I think a lot of them are going to shut down, and then we'll see what happens. Like when things open up again, whether they're able to recover or if they're just done. Like,
because when it comes to bankruptcy, you do have restructuring debt and having other creditors buying. I know, like with Guitar Center, now I think they filed Chapter 11. I think the bad one. Well, I mean, not that Chapter 11 is any good, but Chapter 6, I believe, is the one where you're just totally done. It's
done.
Gone.
Yeah. There's no coming back.
Because I know, was it bond ratings go from like A to like or something that's like C rating, or there's a whole hierarchy of letters.
Right.
It's Moody's, I think, is the one that does the examination. They do like the classifications of like the value of each bond.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, So I guess AMC was mad about it, but I don't know if there's much they can do about it. Legendary allegedly is taking them to court over it.
Because did Warner Brothers, did they bankroll like 25% of the movie?
They did. Yeah, they bankrolled 25%, but I believe the agreement was that they had distribution rights.
That's right. So it's kind of like
I don't know if Legendary has a leg to stand on that one.
Well, I mean,
so we'll see,
but they did say, though, or I guess they did confirm rather, that the movie Godzilla vs. Kong would debut on the 21st of May, 2021 on HBO Max and also in the theaters, I guess.
Yeah, that
wherever they're open.
Date's not going to change. Yeah, at this point, it's not going to get delayed again.
I think it's a strong guess to say that here in Japan, we'll probably have a theater experience.
It'll be out here.
I'm not sure about the States. I mean, or how well it will do in the theaters, considering
the option is there. But whether the theaters are open or not is another situation. But that's not something Warner Brothers really has any stake in. So,
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is going forward with these movie theaters is that studios will buy. I mean, it'll be expensive, but they'll buy and have their own cinemas. Like it'll have like. and I think it does exist in some ways. Like there'll be like a Sony theaters, or there'll be like a Universal theaters.
Well, actually, that option is available now because I guess there was a law that was in play that studios couldn't own theaters in the United States, and that got overturned, I think, last year. So that means that studios can buy theaters now.
Because it's really funny because here in Japan,
like here,
Toho has their own as like the biggest chain, but so I guess we'll see what happens. Or I mean, businesses. I think this is a watershed year because I think like just business overall had a huge downturn. Like 25% of like small businesses are donezo. So. I mean, with restructuring of everything, I guess banks are probably like losing their minds right now. Not to get on total like Wall Street like discussion.
Totally off track. But yeah, you're right.
But we're not too far off though. I mean, we're talking about like the Heisei Era of Japan, the bubble.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat related. But
we'll get back to topic eventually.
Yeah, once we get our degrees in Japanese economics.
Yes.
But anyway, so like we said before, we're going to dive into a retrospective of the Heisei series, part of which was before we were even born, but and it was actually before the Heisei period actually started.
That's true. Yeah, it's still Showa technically.
Yeah, so Godzilla 84, which we didn't get. Well, we got the following year as Godzilla 1985. The Showa period actually ends in 1988. So, like, I was born in 1989, so that was Heisei Ganen, it's called, or Heisei, like, year one. But, the Showa period, though, when Godzilla 84 came out, was the 59th year of the Showa era. So, it's one of my favorite designs. I mean, that's the Anraku Ansaku Saibot.
Yeah. It's definitely a different look.
It stands out like a sore thumb, but I love it. And that's the Marmot Vinyl Wars version with the gold. But with 84, though, I think what's funny is because 85, that was obviously kind of like how the old Showa films were done in regards to they had the footage, they recut it with some American actors, one of which was Raymond Burr, reprising his role as Steve Martin, or Stephen Martin in this one because the comedian had since come into popularity.
Yeah,
but
so Martin came into existence in the meantime. So.
And not to confuse the audiences, I mean, the two guys don't look very similar at all, though.
Although I would have preferred Steve Martin in this.
it might have, comedy might have actually worked then.
A different movie, I think, but yeah.
These Dr. Pepper cans are defective. So that's another good movie. But yeah, they kind of shoehorned a Dr. Pepper ad campaign into it, I guess, in the States. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Dr. Pepper, but it's everywhere. I mean, it's like you see some secret like military base, there's a Dr. Pepper vending machine.
Yeah.
But it has its hokey kind of charm. And that was shown in theaters, and it was brought to the States by, was it New World Cinema, I think it was?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But and the States didn't really, I mean, unless you got a Japanese version or a bootleg, we didn't get an official release of the film with even an English translation until 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But in regards to Godzilla 84, what are your thoughts on it?
The Japanese version, the American version, or just in general?
Well, I guess we can do a rundown of which, did you see both versions?
I have seen both versions since, but obviously I grew up with the 85 one.
Now, how did you hold 85? Like, was it in high esteem, or was it kind of like, it was like a lackluster return?
When I was a kid, I really didn't care that much for it. Mm-hmm. But then as I got older, I started to get more of appreciation for it. And there's certain things I like better in the American one, certain things I like better in the Japanese one.
Mm-hmm. I think they do seem to cut some parts of dialogue. They do streamline it in some ways. And sometimes that does work. Like, I know King Kong vs. Godzilla from the Showa period, when they recut some things, it kind of help provide more explanation for things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what it
Plus,
was.
they have all these weird UN scene explanations in the American version.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. Was it International Pictures did those old versions? Was it
Yeah,
Savage
something
theme?
like that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think too, though. Now, my dad didn't like 85, and I think I didn't see it until a little bit later. So, because I saw the when it came out in 2016, because it was one of the harder movies to find, because I think the rights after they did the initial run of VHS, it never
Right.
came out again. So unless
Yeah.
you saw it on TV or in the
Yeah,
theaters or
I think
had the
it was like
VHS,
never on TV. Like
yeah.
I had the VHS
Mm.
growing up, so I was kind of lucky in that regard. But yeah, it's interesting. I really like the Japanese one
Yeah, it was,
because it really delves into the Cold War aspect, like even
that
more
was
than,
interesting.
which is weird because you think the American one would really want to play up the Cold War
Mm.
stuff, but and that's what makes 1985's interesting for me, because it's almost like Tom Clancy does Godzilla,
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
a
like
different way to look
setting
at
up.
it.
Yeah,
But
it's like, well, what if Godzilla was real and in the situation of the Cold
mm,
War? Because he almost starts a war between
well, Russia
Soviet.
and the States. But I think what it was too is because they were both the Soviets and the Americans, they were jockeying for position in like how to handle the Godzilla situation. In Japan, they were saying it was a national, like it had hints of nationalism with Japan. Like they were kind of resolute in saying no, you cannot use nuclear weapons to end this
Right.
threat. It's like it showed Japan's strength. So I think a lot of that kind of message was kind of cut out when they re-edited it.
Yeah, I mean, it also has some. It also shows some of Japan's problems as well, too, though, because
Mm.
they cover it up for the longest time, and that cover
Yeah,
up causes the war to almost happen. In a
because they,
way, it's almost a precursor to Shin Godzilla.
I
Like
think,
it does kind of play into the
because I think
bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff.
I'm trying to think. Wasn't one of the main characters in the film was it Goromaki?
Yeah, yeah, they
That's
do reference him. Yeah, I think he's the scientist. Was he a ornithologist or something? He's the
mm,
bird guy, I think, in
yes,
the
that's right. Because what's interesting too is I think in Shin Godzilla, um, isn't that the guy when they go on the first scene when they find the boat, they find the notes, and I
yeah.
think they reuse the name. But
Yeah, they use the name. It's not the same character, but they use the same name. Yeah, it's definitely a reference to that.
and I think because what was funny because they showed the media covering up things because they found the guy because the main character, the one girl, her brother was on the boat, and they're like, oh, like no, we didn't find anyone. It's like, but then they had him in the hospital, and the
Mm-hmm.
guy that was trying to get with her, who is the reporter, he weaseled his way into the hospital to take pictures, and it's like, oh, yeah, there's a Godzilla. It's
Yeah, yeah. Which that moment was very Showa, because
Mhm.
they always had, there was several Showa movies that had like the photographer, journalist, or
Mm.
whatever as the main characters.
But
Um,
I think what it was too is the characters were interesting. There was depth to them, and
yeah,
the film itself, you did care about it because I think Godzilla didn't fight any other monsters in this movie, so it was just, and I think
this
that's what did
super
separate it
thing
because
they fight.
they did need to hit the reset button with this, and they did it in a number of ways. I think too, like having no monsters for like fighting Godzilla, so you couldn't really cheer for Godzilla, and
No.
the music is one of the biggest nostalgic things you can have, and especially the Godzilla series. And it kind of gets you in the mood to cheer for him, or like for when he goes to
Mm.
battle something. But the soundtrack, other than the main Godzilla theme, was all new. It was totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all new music, and the soundtrack sets the tone for it, because you don't root for
Mm.
Godzilla, but they make Godzilla more sympathetic,
They do.
because
I
there's
think
kind of a sadness, like melancholy, to a lot of the music. So,
it was like that. It was 1984. Like it was all synth, and
mhm.
it had like that kind of like dread feeling of it. It was,
Yeah,
but I think what was interesting too, and I think we talked about this when we talked about the new anime coming out, Singular Point. was Godzilla doesn't look that big in the movie, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In this movie,
He kind of gets just like wrecked like by Super X.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He does have a hard time with Super X till he just drops a building on him.
But what's funny,
rather, because it's just a robot like ship,
mm.
which in a way is almost reminiscent of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark when he just shoots the swordsman instead of actually fighting him. It's kind of that same kind of thing. He just drops a building on him.
But because it's funny because I didn't realize how big that building was that Godzilla just like kind of collapsed into.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think that's it. What was cool is like when you saw him walking and you saw like the reflection of his face and like all the glass panels.
Yeah. I prefer that. Like I like Godzilla smaller because when they get too big, they lose any kind of,
I guess, the humanity of it, because he's when he's smaller, he's closer to the people. I mean, he's
right. He can like move through the city and all that kind of stuff. Whereas like it gets ridiculous. Like Shin Godzilla, he's so big that there's like one building taller than him in some scenes.
Mm-hmm. Or it's like Godzilla. Was it Godzilla Earth too? Is like that 300 meters
tall. Godzilla Earth's like ridiculous. He's like the size of a mountain. But yeah, this one I think officially he's 80 meters tall in this one, so he's still bigger than Showa. But the buildings got bigger since the 60s too.
Yeah, because I think the original was it 50 meters high?
Yeah, okay. From 54 to 75, he was 50 meters. That was
because I think too because GMK Millennium Series he was 60 meters I think because he wasn't the biggest but he was definitely powerful.
Yeah, but he's like more imposing, but he's not the biggest.
And Godzilla does bulk up. He does hit the juice
throughout this series. Yeah,
definitely.
This one especially. Yeah, definitely changes throughout.
And but overall, though, I think what was funny is a lot of the movie is dark in some ways, not just like in terms of like the mood, but just like a lot of the cinematography is darker, but it's not drowned out though. You do see Godzilla very good. I think like one of the scenes, like one of my favorite like scenes, like I have like pictures of it printed out, is like when he goes to the power plant and he's feeding off of the reactor, and it's a night scene.
Yeah,
but you can see him clearly, and I don't know that suit though. He's just so mean looking. It's just like this the eyes.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
So.
One thing I didn't want to say was that scene where he gets to the power plant is really cool because I think it's the closest you ever see Godzilla to a person.
Yeah.
Like ever in the series until like Mega Gears, you got people climbing on his back and crap. But because there's that one scene where he just stomps down right in front of that guard.
But the only complaint is people rip on the Cybot. But I think probably the most egregious special effect in that movie was the footprint, not the one with the guard, but the one in the city when you see it coming down, and it kind of does look.
Oh yeah.
It looks fake.
It's like over time.
Yeah. But I think the Cybot, for all intents and purposes, it was a necessary step. Because the show they had a lot of puppets. I think if they didn't have, it wasn't the suit. It was maybe they had like something like that, or like a guy like going like this. And like a torso.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of animatronic close-ups and stuff.
So it was definitely a new type of technology, and it would set the foundation for what would happen in the series, and it would get better in some ways. But interestingly, though, I mean, a lot of people say the Heisei Godzillas look very similar, but between like the movies, they did change enough to where you can notice it. I mean,
there's a big change. A unique look. 84 and Biollante is a huge change. A completely different design. And then from that point on, it's kind of the same, but with some slight variation.
But to kind of wrap up 84, the difference is kind of like, I'm sure you've probably seen like the difference between the original Gojira and the American version of King of the Monsters. When the oxygen destroyer hits him and the roar happens, the Japanese version has like that octave lower. It's like... Whereas the American one's like the standard roar.
Right.
But what's funny is they kind of swapped it, I think, in the American version, because like when he goes down to the spoiler, when he falls, gets pushed into the volcano essentially. It's like you feel bad for him, but the American version is just like it's like tear-inducing.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Like it's the only way to like you the only way to describe it is to say it's like haunting. I mean,
It's
there's
blood
that
curdling.
as yeah, as he's falling down the volcano, he just lets out like this blood curdling screech. And yeah, it's like it really sticks with you. It's like one of the most memorable scenes.
I think out of like all the Facebook groups, I mean, people talk about, um, you know, I mean, everyone knows Godzilla dies later on in the series, but they talk about like in
Right.
Destroy when he dies, but it's like, oh, I think a lot of people mention that scene though almost just as much.
This is my yeah, and that obviously Godzilla. We'll get to that with Destroya, but like that scene messed me up as a kid. But the Godzilla 1985 thing, it just sticks with you.
Mm. But
Definitely.
overall though, I think having seen the Japanese version in 2016 though, how does it stack up though? Does it rate better in your book now, like compared to like how it ranked, I guess, previously?
Um, yeah, I mean, I overall I prefer the Japanese version.
Mm,
Like, I think the only major improvement in the American one is that scene with Godzilla screeching.
mm.
But it's not that the American one's bad. It's just like the 56 one versus 54.
I
Like, you know,
mean,
they're
hey,
it's
we
kind of
didn't
the
know about
same
the
plot.
other one, so I mean, you
Right,
can't
exactly.
be bitter about
I mean,
something you
look
don't
how
know.
long it took for, because you say until 2016. How long did
Yeah,
it take for 54 to come out in America? That didn't come out till the 50th anniversary or something.
yeah, I think you're right. But
So yeah, it was
I
like
mean, unless
50.
you had like some kind of like fan trading, tape trading or whatever. But
Right, but officially, yeah, like
mm,
an actual release you could buy in stores.
definitely, definitely. But I think too, my dad even said he goes, "This is a great movie now. It's like it's one you can like. It was kind of a non-factor before in some respects, but now it's one of my favorites personally.
Yeah,
But
it's really good. I would definitely put it up pretty high.
and I think when we talk about future installments in the series, I think there will be a lot of references going back to this movie to saying,
Mhm.
I almost wish they would have retread the grounds that 84 did rather than how they actually happened.
Right, yeah.
But moving forward to the next in the series, we have in 1989 we have Godzilla versus Biollante.
Mhm.
So, and the interesting part too is this they have a similar kind of feel in regards to how they're shot, like cinematography.
Mhm.
But and it was another movie that we got in the States, not in theaters, but it came out through HBO, I think.
Right. Yeah, this was
So
an HBO
that's
Miramax.
that's an interesting connection. The newest one coming out, and then Biollante.
Yeah.
But now I think over the years too, this is another film that has grown on a lot of people.
Mhm.
So Biollante right here, Biogoji. But
Yeah.
I think like it's another film my dad and I watched when I was younger, and maybe it was the American dub of it that just
That yeah, you can almost talk a whole thing about the American dub because that is a strange dub.
it's definitely different. I think it's kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 like kind of content. Like it's
Yeah,
a
and
Syrian agent.
yeah, it's the Soviet Asian again, and that's about the only line we can actually talk about in here because the degree of swearing that's in the Godzilla versus Biollante
Yeah,
dub is
I
like
think it's one of the most violent human on human movies too.
yeah, yeah. There's
Like,
definitely not only that, but the kaiju like gore is on
yeah,
another level. You have like Godzilla takes that thing like tendril like through his
right into his
hand,
hand.
pull it
It's
out. And, yeah, it's
the later show movies though too were pretty brutal. I guess
yeah, it was kind of
like a
like
Godzilla,
that, but with better effects.
definitely. I think the first two movies, the special effects like of the Heisei series, the special effects were done really well, especially when you think about Biolante. I think there was at least 20 something people were at the controls for when it was in its final form.
Right. Yeah. I would actually go so far as to say that Biolante for the time it was made is probably has the best special effects of the entire Godzilla series. Like
Mm.
I think it went downhill after Biolante.
Yeah,
With
I think.
Destroy comes close,
Mm,
but the other ones aren't even close to Biolante.
mm. I just think what's funny too, and I mean, it's funny. There's a longer gap between 84 and Biollante, but they seem very similar in some respects to. Then you have the rest of the series, which feels like so different.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, and I don't dislike the rest of the series. Like, my opinion on these movies changes all the time, but for the longest time, the Heisei series was my favorite era as a whole, and I think it still is in some ways.
Whether it's nostalgia or it's just the content or
just the way,
how they told stories.
And I have like a weird nostalgia for the 80s anyway. Like, I was born in the 80s, but I was like 3 when it ended. So like, I don't remember anything from the 80s, but for some reason I have like a weird nostalgia for it. And as I've gotten older, I really love like 80s horror movies. And it's funny because I've seen so many of them and I still keep finding new ones that I've never even heard of.
Well, I
and
think the reason for that too is just the proliferation of home media. I mean, with the VHS, I mean, you had so many more people releasing direct to video or things of that nature. So it just, you had little studios popping up, just putting out movies.
Right. Yeah. There's so many movies that came out in the 80s, and weirdly, Japan was the opposite. Like, Japan has very few movies that came out in the 80s that actually like stood the test of time.
Exactly.
But this one, Biollante, is definitely up there as like one of my favorites. And I'm not alone in that, because I think they just did a poll like a couple years ago or something, and it was for Japanese viewers. And they asked, like, what was your favorite Godzilla movie? And Biollante was the one that was number one.
It's like it was, why didn't you like it 30 years ago? We made no money from it.
Well, in a way, it's kind of like The Thing, because John Carpenter's The Thing made no money
until VHS.
Yeah, now it's like considered the greatest science fiction horror film ever made or whatever, and it's like, well,
it's up there. But because there's the practical effects, I think with the CG era, CG to cinemaphiles, like movie fans, it's like some of the early efforts, like you talk Jurassic Park, you talk Terminator 2, those films still look good. You look at some of these new films coming out, and CGI, it should be leagues better. It's not. It's like, and it seems lazy, and I think they rely too heavily on it to cover up for bad scripts, for just bad design. It's just like, oh, look how cool it looks. But it's like,
and I really do like movies today and that sort of thing too. Like, I'm not this purist as like, oh, I'm only watch practical effects, but there is something about the practical effects that
there's a magic to it. I mean, I'll say technology is magical too. I mean, how can you take a bunch of zeros and ones and make a program or make like a picture? It's crazy. I can't wrap my mind around it. But
I'm not saying that CG is lazy or something, because it's not, but it's just different.
I think too, though, with practical effects, when you can't see how they're doing it, you can't grasp how they're doing it, it's kind of like going to see a magic show. It's like, oh, it's fake, it's sleight of hand, it's smoke and mirrors. But when one trick gets you, it makes you believe again. And movies like The Thing, like you watch that, and when you see like this, the stomach is clamped and his hands are gone, it's like, how did they do that? It's like, that's so wild.
It's so, that one's really good. And that could be, if we ever run out of kaiju topics, that could be another thing. We'll get into horror movies in general.
That would have been an awesome Godzilla movie. Godzilla versus, not the one we got in 64.
Well, we did get Godzilla versus the Thing, but that thing.
Very different. But just one thing I've been collecting too in Japan to talk while we're talking about these two movies is just movie tickets. We didn't get these in the States. These are so cool. I mean, you have the Orai poster art, and these I guess were distributed at Toho theaters. But that's 84. This was 1,000 yen, so that's like $10 in today's money. I mean, I'm not sure what inflation would be, but
I don't know what it was back then.
This one you can't see it, but it's 1,300 yen for a single ticket. But I don't know. I'm trying to think too, with movie with Biollante. Well, the thing that's interesting about Biollante, it's an introduction of the character who would remain in the rest of the series, Miki Saegusa.
It's an introduction of a lot of things, because it introduces Miki. it introduces G-force, the concept of G-force. Like we kind of got a precursor of it in 84, but this is where they actually have G-force, like for the first time they actually name it that.
That, and it does set up Godzilla as an anti-hero. I mean, they're still trying to get rid of Godzilla. Like, how do we kill this thing? How do we defeat him? But at the same time,
Godzilla is still the villain, but then
there's
Biollante is almost an anti-hero too. Like there's two, none of them's like purely good.
Both of them are tragic in a way. I mean,
Biollante is definitely tragic.
I think
and Biollante is Godzilla because it's a clone of him.
Because the soul of Erica and Dr. Shiragami, he injected her DNA into the rose to save like the last bit of her.
Yeah.
And with the G cells.
Mm-hmm. But because it was that movie's ahead of its time too, because the whole plot's about GMOs. Yeah,
because I was in Saradia, which is a desert. They try to grow like all the plants that like need like no water.
Yeah, they're trying to grow some kind of like super wheat or something that could grow in a desert. Beat
back America and its breadbasket.
Yeah.
But
it set up a lot of interesting ideas. That's a Showa thing too, like making up countries.
Yeah.
Because the Showa era had like is that like New Kirk City or some junk in like one of the Mothra movies, and they always like made up stuff in those movies. But Saradia.
That's kind of like Universal movies too. They'd have like made up like European towns or something.
Right. Yeah. Same kind of setup.
But I mean, the battle scene for Godzilla vs. Biollante, I mean, you have two of them. The one in Ashi Lake, and then the final one where it's the final form. Because you have the rose form, and you have like the monstrosity form.
Crazy, like crocodile mouth version. Tries to eat Godzilla.
Then like does like the projectile like exorcist vomit on him.
Right. Yeah, it's like spits acid at him, which is pretty cool.
The last battle, I mean, well, it is exciting in some parts. It's not very long, and I think that's originally why some fans were disappointed in the movie. It wasn't like this huge big battle, like Godzilla didn't blow up this monster.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of short. It's anticlimactic too because the bacteria is what defeats Godzilla, not
But but the one thing that's interesting, when you do see Erica's face like float up into the sky, like when Biollante kind of like dematerializes.
Yeah.
But I just think those two movies though, they do seem like, because they're direct sequels too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're kind of really cohesive. But I mean, you do see a thread of continuity in the series. I think
right, and that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite. But yeah, it gets looser after Biollante.
Yeah, I think especially with each monster, that like successive monster, it goes off in its own directions.
Mm-hmm.
But in Japan, we know that they got these movies, Bing Bang Boom. But in the States, though, we did get 85 and we got Biollante. After that, we didn't see Godzilla for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, in 94, they tried to do a movie. Was Sam Winston was, he
designed it. I think Jan de Bont was supposed to direct it, who was the director of Speed.
He wanted like $150 million to do it, and they said absolutely no.
Yeah, I believe he wanted around $100 million to do it, and they said no. And then ironically, the movie
we got Roland Emmerich the money.
Yeah. Roland Emmerich cost more than the one that was in development. But I really would have liked to see that Godzilla, the one that Jan de Bont was doing.
That's probably a topic for another day.
That is, we definitely could talk about that one, but
because there's just so many what ifs in this series. But to kind of go back to what we were talking about too, is we didn't get Godzilla for a number of years, but the hype in 1998 for the Matthew Broderick film was huge. I mean,
it was massive.
Especially before the design was revealed. But that was a big factor. And I didn't realize
they hid that design for the longest time.
And what was funny is they actually released different designs to different companies to see who would leak it first. And I think Fruit of the Loom leaked the image and they lost a license or something. It was ridiculous. I was reading. But with Godzilla '98, is like, Taco Bell had that whole campaign, and Trendmasters, that's a whole other topic too.
Yeah, that's a big topic for this one though, because Trendmasters is actually our first look at the Heisei Kaiju, whether we knew it or not. Like, we all thought that well, I don't know, everybody thought, but personally, I thought they were just like made up things.
Yeah.
For the toy line, because the toy line makes up its own storylines, because they had G-Force characters that were like 4-inch action figures, and they were made up characters
too, like a very small, like 1 or 2 comics that came with the figures.
Right, and there was each one had a trading card, and the stats were on the back, and the stats, some of them are based on the movies, but some of them are just completely made up. So like, you couldn't tell if they just totally made everything up or what.
Because the designs are too realized. They're not like, well, some of them are very realized. And then some of them we never got at all, interestingly enough.
Yeah, and they gave us like Heisei-ized versions of some of the Showa Kaiju.
And the ones that didn't show up eventually, those are probably the worst, among the worst looking figures, whereas the ones that look close to the movies, they're pretty cool.
Well, yeah. And it depends. There is a certain charm to those other ones.
There is.
Even if Baragon looks like he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger with
he's got major guns.
Yeah, they've all got these huge muscles. Yeah, Megalon.
It's like going back,
another version of Gigon.
It's like going back to Kenner too, like with Star Wars figures. They had like the roided out Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that's true. And also, well, speaking of Kenner also did, I believe they did the toy line for Alien and Predator as well, and they made up a whole bunch of stuff for that too. Like, there's like a Rhino alien and
the toy lines. They had to keep this product going, so they had to think of new ideas.
Right. So back to my original point, though, is that we didn't know if these were real or not, because so much of it was made up. Everybody just assumed Batra. What's Batra? That's got to be made
Godzilla.
Up. Was this Space Godzilla? Like, what are you talking about? So when
I specifically have a memory when I went to KB Toys, and I think I probably mentioned this before, but when I got the double pack, it was like the 4-inch figures of Godzilla and Mecha Godzilla. My dad goes, "That don't look like Mecha Godzilla."
Right. Yeah, because it's a totally different design.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got the poster version as well, because there's one of the Mechagodzilla figures, I think it was for the Doom Island line or something, is based on the poster Mechagodzilla. And
I didn't even know that. I know that was a line that was supposed to come out but got canceled, and then they like dumped all of them in like
Taiwan or something, and then so they ended up on eBay.
Yeah, they were unloading them.
And there was a whole bunch more coming out that never did. There was a Kumanga, there was a Destroya, there was
they had a Kamacuras prototype too that I saw.
Yeah, and those ones never got released. They were prototypes. And the last ones that came out was like Varan, Baragon, Megalon, like those ones. I have the Megalon figure, but that's the only one I was able to get from that. But I didn't get it until years later. I got it like 3 years ago at a Comic-Con. I never saw it in the wild back then.
No, I didn't either, because they did the 2 series. They did King of the Monsters, and they did Godzilla Wars, and then after that they did, well, the main topic right now, Godzilla '98. That they went all in on Godzilla '98. They made tons and tons of these things, and the movie did make money.
Yeah, it did actually make money. Like, that's a lot of people think it tanked, but
I think with because Godzilla fans are a whole other breed. Their wallets, they opens up and they buy a lot of stuff, but that design, they did not love it. When I first saw it, I didn't like it either.
No, it's too radically different. When I first saw it, I'm trying to think back. I would have been like 10 or 11 when that movie came. I was probably 10. And the first time I saw it was I saw the toy line at Toys R Us, because like the internet existed in '98, but I didn't have it. So I didn't.
If you had an AOL like trial disc with 5 hours on it. It's like, ooh.
I didn't get the internet until years later. Like, I still remember going to the library to look up stuff for when GMK came out. So
I think I finally got the internet summer of '99, or going to, like, when I was in 4th grade. I finally got it. It was like
I probably
CompuServe, like the original dial.
Yeah, I probably didn't get it until 2002, 2003, something like. Because I remember I had to go to the library to look up stuff about GMK.
Okay.
That was like the first time because it was like brand new. So that would have been like 2001. And I didn't
for me too, like Toys R Us it was an essential part of like our childhood, because it's like you mentioned, like you saw the Godzilla toys there. And I remember when Star Wars Episode 1 was coming out, and everyone it was a bum rush there. Like all these like kids, it was men in their 40s, like with shopping carts full of stuff, like, oh, who's this character, and they're trying to collect them all and like learn as much as they could about them before they saw the movie.
I remember that too. And I still have all the stuff from that, but I have all the stuff from God. I never get rid of anything. But
the burdens we carry, literally, sometimes.
Exactly. But it was definitely an interesting time. And I remember when I first saw the design, I thought it was the Kaiju Godzilla fought. Like, I didn't realize that was Godzilla until I saw the movie. But
because for me, did you see it in the theater?
I did, yeah.
I didn't. Like, my dad and I, like, we went to the movies, but not a lot. But we got it at Blockbuster. We said, okay, let's watch it. And when we watched it, we were just like, what is this? Like, because I wouldn't even say hate is the word. We're just, oh, that was a waste of time.
Right.
And anytime, like basically everyone just rips on Zilla or Gino, as people like to call him. Right. But and I think over the years, though, I think some people still hold the grudge. I mean, some people still
it's like it's sort of like you just said, Episode 1. It's kind of got the same stigma that Phantom Menace has.
Yeah,
there's some people that have let that go, and some people think that's actually a good movie, and then there's a lot of people that still hold this grudge about Jar Jar Binks, like he ruined the entire franchise, and it's like.
I mean, as if the newest trilogy didn't cement that. I mean,
well, the new trilogy kind of reevaluated the prequels for a lot of people. So prequels are in again.
So it's like it's kind of like you don't know what you got until it's gone.
Right. And as far as 98 goes, when I saw it, I didn't really like it, but I didn't hate it.
I think we were 10 years old, and maybe some of the humor was lost on us.
Yeah. I think the humor was lost. I do remember actually like getting upset at the end when he died.
Oh, and he got that suspension bridge and stuff.
Yeah, when he died.
They unloaded on him. I mean, it's...
Yeah. It was like, because I always got attached to the monsters when I was a kid. So
well,
it was like, whenever the monster
dies, it's like they're chasing with pitchforks and torches, and it's like...
Yeah, so I do remember, I'm pretty sure I cried at the end when Godzilla died. But, I remember that. Godzilla vs. Destroyer messed me up for like weeks after I saw that.
His heart exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
So, yeah, that one, I remember that one. That was the worst one. We'll get to that when we're talking back into the Heisei series. But
definitely.
I remember the Peter Jackson King Kong. I was never able to watch the end without crying all the time. But
see, I have Peter Jackson's King Kong on DVD. I saw it in the theaters with my dad, and too long. I mean, Peter Jackson. The guy's got vision, but it's just like you need to condense that, bro. I mean, you can get that done in like an hour and a half.
The same movie as the original movie, and the original movie is over before they even get to the island.
I mean, I think it was the casting too. I mean, not to go off on a Kong tangent, but
this could be another.
I mean, Jack Black was around that period when he was doing all his comedy movies. It's like
Black was so weird in that, like the choice.
Is it Carl Denham? And I think Adrian Brody. I mean, Adrian Brody is a good actor, though.
Adrian Brody
was the pianist, like when he was the piano player, and during World War II. But I think it just
I like Adrian Brody. But,
maybe you had people that were talented, but their talents didn't mesh, and personally,
I think the only one that was really well, this could be another video entirely, but the only one that really was off for me was Jack Black. But that movie, it's long, but I do enjoy it. Like it's
there's a lot of people on like the Facebook pages that are nostalgic about it. I mean, that's the one they grew up with.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
So, I mean, it didn't do anything egregious.
The way, right. It's just the way the music and the way it's shot, and if you watch the original movie, you know what's going to happen. But it's like the way they have Kong with Anne, and there's like this touching moment where there's a sunset or sunrise or whatever's going on, and then they're together, and it's just like this like touching moment, and then the biplanes come flying in, and it's like you're like your heart sinks because you know what's going to happen.
I mean,
it's like
I think the 76 version was a little more gruesome though, and you see the plane.
The 76 version's like overkill. It also shows
with the squibs going.
It also shows like the same 3 seconds of footage on repeat. but yeah, that's another story entirely. But
yeah, not to mention was it Kong Lives? I think was that the 80s.
That's a mess.
Oof.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's a lot of people that I knew. I think I went to see that movie with some friends, and they never watched the original movie. And I had seen the original movie probably like 100 times before I saw the Peter Jackson one. So it's like I knew some of the lines in the movie before they were saying them and stuff like that because they did. Yeah, they're like, "How'd you know that? Did you watch this already?" I'm like, "I watched the original."
There's an original?
What? But yeah, I was like that. Those weird kids, like some of us, especially we grew up in the 90s, we had access to everything. Yeah. So like we grew up with movies from the 30s to the 80s. Like
yeah, I mean, I grew up on Three Stooges, Little Rascals, Universal Monster movies.
It was like we had our own stuff, and then
that's
like we're talking about nostalgia. Because right now, that's what this is basically. This is like our nostalgia. We're talking about the 80s and 90s movies. But our nostalgia as kids is weird because at least in my case, it was like I have nostalgia from stuff from the 30s
like my dad wasn't even born. It's like
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same. Like my parents weren't born either. Like my dad was our grandpa was a kid when King Kong came out. Like,
but I think what's funny though is some of the qualities of that entertainment though was present in our childhood stuff, like on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network.
It was on TV.
Yeah, there's references, or it's like every little kid can almost identify. It's like identifying Elvis, identifying King Kong. It's Godzilla. It's a cultural figure.
Yeah, I mean we're fans of Godzilla. I mean this is a character that
is the longest running franchise.
30,
I mean,
30 some years before we were born. Yeah.
But so, not to beat a dead horse with 98, I think it's a movie I've softened on, and it's a good popcorn flick.
I honestly like it. It's not Godzilla, but it's a good monster movie. It harkens back more to, it's more like an American 50s monster movie than it is.
It's like basically Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, like Redux.
Right. Which is good because that's what inspired Godzilla in the first place.
It's kind of come full circle.
Right.
And I think the movie gets hate on. They say, oh, it's CGI. But there was actually suit actors in that movie.
There were suit actors. There's also a giant animatronic Godzilla that they made.
So, because I saw I have some of the pamphlets. Like that came out when the Godzilla 98 came out here. They had a pamphlet and it showed like all the special effects. Because people like Tokusatsu, like live action or special effects, they're crazy about it here. So they showed them all the behind the scenes stuff, and it really gave you an appreciation for it. It wasn't lazy. There was thought put into it.
Right. You talking about to get this back into the Heisei era, you were talking about Cybot for 84, and it's like the giant animatronic Godzilla that was using this was kind of like the ultimate version of that Cybot.
That was pretty cool.
Because they were using special effects that started with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, they did. Was it not Suitmation, but they did like they'd have the animatronics, but then they applied the like slight CGI to it to edit out the seams or like things that would be.
And the baby Godzilla stuff is very reminiscent of the Raptors in Jurassic Park. And
I got that feeling too when I watched it.
Yeah,
but I think like I said, it's a movie I've softened on, and I recently just finished watching the Godzilla animated series that was on Fox.
That's
and
awesome.
It was fantastic. It was entertaining, and I think what made people complained about too with the movie, he didn't have atomic breath, and he didn't fight any other monsters. In the series, he fights tons of new monsters. He has atomic breath, and it just, for a kid show on Fox, I mean, this wasn't a big budget affair, but it was done really well. I mean, I'll give him that.
It was very well done, and we almost got a sequel to the Godzilla. Came really, really close to coming out, and then it got canceled like last minute.
I think the impending Millennium series that Toho did did the final nail in the coffin there, honestly.
Right.
But not to go too far ahead.
Yeah, I think they more or less took the rights back, which is actually a situation I think is happening now with the Legendary thing. And it's like some people don't want to believe it, but Toho did talk about their World of Godzilla that they wanted to do, and everything seems to be pointing at that Godzilla vs. Kong is going to be the last movie in the Legendary franchise. But we'll see.
Definitely. I mean, I think because for years it seemed like Godzilla was almost like dead in the water here, and then now I'm happy to see the resurgence. I mean,
we have mixed feelings about Shin Godzilla, but it played a big role in that. I think.
It did, but I think people can hate on 898, but TriStar, if it wasn't for that movie, we would not have gotten the rest of the Heisei films in the States.
Yeah, I was just gonna try to redirect us back into that again, but so
right there.
That was we definitely need to steer back onto Control. But that was the movie that part of the promotional campaign for that movie was the release on VHS of like Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Mothra, like all of those.
These posters, man.
That's another thing I was gonna say. The posters
doesn't get any better than the Ori posters. I mean, you got a sub launching a missile. Incredible artwork. I mean, this is the guy who also did the international poster for, was it Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, the Star Wars posters. Yeah.
Just incredible artist. But so I mean, heck, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah could probably be its own episode. I mean, if you want to talk time travel.
We could do a Heisei Revisited. I'm thinking this one will be our like overview of the series, and then maybe we can get like more in depth.
Definitely.
But I think, there's so much to talk about.
With Ghidorah, I think it feels a lot. I mean, first things first, like we said before, there's a definite delineation between 84 and Biollante and the rest of the series in terms of the feel.
Right.
Now, 84 and Biollante feel like feature films.
Yeah.
Ghidorah and the rest of them, in a lot of ways, feel like TV movies or like Power Ranger episodes stretched out.
Yeah, they do. Not as much as the Millennium series for me. Those really feel like TV movies. But there's definitely like a downgrade in quality, in my opinion.
It feels like a soundstage.
Yeah.
I mean, we know they use the big pool like for the ocean and like all the movies, but I think it was the sense of size. Like I think when Godzilla is smaller, it's better, whereas when he's bigger, it makes it actually has the opposite effect.
Yeah, because this movie is the movie that increases Godzilla's size. So
to 100 meters, because when they moved him, and then the sub hit him, and then he absorbed all the radiation.
Right. He absorbed all the radiation from that guy's like private nuclear sub that he just happens to have.
He's got big bucks.
Part of his his company's into diversification.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff I really like about Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and then there's other stuff like
the designs are good. I mean, the monster designs are really good. I mean, say what you will about Ghidorah's roar, it's no longer BDBDB. It's like just a
generic roar, yeah. But Mecha King Ghidorah was kind of cool.
It was unique. It's kind of like was there ever, other than Mecha Godzilla when he came back in the next movie, I mean, was there ever a monster that got like resurrected in that same movie, like in a different way?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the Mechagodzilla is like a different. They built him from the beginning too. It wasn't like he was defeated, came back.
I think
guess
the battle with Mecha King Ghidorah didn't last long, unfortunately, but
no, it's kind of short.
But
it's still kind of cool.
Definitely.
I think what else? The time travel plot is like really complicated and doesn't really make sense, but
it does. The movie does.
They're trying to do something different.
Yeah, it's interesting in a way. I think what it is too is it feels like a show movie in some ways with the aliens, like the Futurians. Right.
Yeah, so I mean they're technically future humans in this, but yeah, the same idea. Yeah.
So it filled that void, but then you have like the android, but I'm trying to think.
The skating scene, yeah.
But
the Dorats.
Yeah. So I think seeing them go back to the island though was interesting. Some of the dialogue was a little funky.
Take that, you dinosaur.
That, and you can tell your son about it, Mr. Spielberg.
Yeah, Major Spielberg.
Major Spielberg. And
yeah.
So definitely some like winks and nods. It's like,
yeah, right.
But overall, though, I think they tried to play it safe because after Biollante didn't really do too well, they went back to what is well known and what's popular because Biollante was completely new. Ghidorah is probably about as traditional as you can get.
Right, yeah. Ghidorah is kind of the Joker to Batman kind of thing with Godzilla. Yeah. It's like the main villain. And this is when Toho started their, we need money, so let's throw Ghidorah and Mothra at everything.
Speaking of, and if Ghidorah is going to be the Joker, Mothra is definitely the Catwoman to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So it's like they have a connection, yet they fight every time they see each other. So.
Right. Which around the same time is when we got the reboots of Batman and started with the Joker, and then the next movie had Catwoman. So it's been kind of set up. But yeah, Godzilla versus Mothra. I guess we'll move right into that one. That to me, that's the weakest one.
Yeah.
Well, that and Space Godzilla, but we'll get
I think it's just not memorable. The designs are cool. I mean, Batra looks like.
I really like Batra, although I always thought it was kind of weird that Batra just instantly transforms and doesn't have like a cocoon stage. Like that was weird. But yeah, Batra was cool. The concept was cool, and they didn't really delve into it. The idea that these are ancient beings from thousands of years ago have been fighting each other forever, and Batra is like actually a protector of the earth. Just like Mothra, but
it's like
Batra,
the yin and yang.
Yeah, and both of them want to protect the Earth, but Batra wants to do it mostly by just destroying humanity because it's a threat to the planet. So, whereas Mothra is like more,
I just think
forgiving.
Like some of the fight, like the underwater fight scene, everyone complains about, but I just think that's where, quote unquote, a lot of people complain about the series too is the beam wars. I mean,
the beam wars, yeah. Well, Batra's introduction is pretty cool though. How Batra just like goes beelines right for Godzilla, and he just like launches Mothra out of the way. And it's like get out of here! I
can handle this.
Yeah, but and the other thing that's weird too is that like they hype Mothra and Batra up as like mortal enemies, and then they just team up against Godzilla at the end, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's disjointed. And they try to do like the corporate greed angle too, with building stuff or like,
which is very much like the original.
It's kind of a movie you can read a magazine through, where it's like you put it on while you're doing chores. It's like you don't feel like you're gonna miss much.
Right. Yeah.
And
like there's some parts of it that are good, but most of it's not great. The main character is kind of like an Indiana Jones ripoff.
Oh yeah, the guy that was like he was plundering like all these like ancient things.
Yeah, down in Southeast.
And then the woman who was like, it was his ex-wife, and it's like kind of like a love interest, and she was like bitter at him.
Yeah, they were like trying to do stuff, and it just came off as like a weird like Lifetime movie with monsters.
but yeah, not one I can really recommend to anybody. It's one you can skip and you won't. It's funny because there's no connection almost to the rest of the series. I mean, until you get to Space Godzilla, they make
Godzilla is kind of like an indirect sequel to Godzilla versus Mothra, and it's like also the weakest.
It's like they skip and like there's sequels. Like I think because you go from King Ghidorah, then you go to the one after that with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That's the sweetest.
And then this one,
because they show the King Ghidorah head and they use that technology to make Mechagodzilla. So I mean that's a direct link. And then, like you said, how Space Godzilla got created was either Biollante going into space with Godzilla cells or Mothra going into space, like flying off.
Right. So and then not only that, but the Mothra fairies, which are called, I think, the Cosmos in this one. They keep changing the names. But
and the names were different in the Mothra sub-series, too.
Yeah, they're the Elias or something.
I think.
But yeah, they're the Cosmos, and they come and they warn Miki about Space Godzilla. So it's like kind of assumed that either they got some kind of like telepathic prophecy about Space Godzilla or they encountered it along the way.
Yeah.
Because Mothra goes off into space to go destroy that asteroid that's supposed to come to Earth, which is kind of like a Gorath type reference, but they don't really... Like everything else, they don't really delve into it too much.
And none of the Mothra movies that came out, the Mothra series came out after the Godzilla Heisei series finished up, I think from starting in 96. But none of them really connect. So.
They don't connect to the other ones aside from Mothra possibly being the same Mothra because it's the same design.
Well, the thing is, though, is in the Mothra series, it's Mothra Leo, right? That was the second one?
That's the larva.
Okay.
The larva had, because that Mothra dies.
Nice.
The old Mothra dies, like drowns. It's like one of the most like traumatic scenes in a kaiju movie. It drowns as like the larva is like desperately trying to save its mother, and it just sinks into the water. It's like one of the most depressing scenes. And then that larva evolves into Mothra Leo, which is kind of like the Rainbow Mothra kind of thing. Which Bandai really loves because they keep releasing Rainbow Mothra figures every couple of years.
Hey, make the money where you can, right?
Right, and then that series went all in on Ghidorah for some reason, but that's kind of a
really sweet-looking Ghidorah, but...
Two really sweet-looking Ghidorahs because Death Ghidorah is kind of neat, and then the Grand Ghidorah is like the coolest version.
Have they done an X Plus of that, or like...
No.
I'm surprised that would be it.
Bandai did both figures.
Yeah, I know the box one.
Boxed figures, and they're really nice. I have both back home. But yeah, Death Ghidorah came in a box, and so did Grand Ghidorah.
The only thing about that Death Ghidorah, though, is it sounds like an elephant.
Sounds like an elephant, yeah. But I always thought the design was cool.
Definitely.
It's got a four-legged Ghidorah. I mean, Kaiser Ghidorah kind of does it, but Death Ghidorah looks better. Kaiser Ghidorah's got weird rat tails and tiny wings.
Definitely.
But that's neither here nor there. So let's get back to Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
But this was, I think, after the first two, this is my favorite. I mean, it's
good.
It's the movie. It moves, and there's like it's almost no unessential scenes. I mean, yeah, because the characters, you do feel for them. I think the characters are really relatable. Like
much better than the last two.
I mean. And the comedy they do in the movie is funny. Like, he goes like to being the parking lot attendant, and then he goes to G-Force and back and forth.
Yeah, he's in charge of the parking lot. Yeah.
I mean, the movie's definitely...
That's a likable character, though, at least in my opinion. That Aoki.
Aoki.
He's more likable than the other guys. His romance subplot,
there's like...
Yeah, his romance subplot, I feel... was much more genuine than the last step movie.
It wasn't. They didn't try to play it seriously, which I mean usually ends up cringy kind of. Whereas he's kind of affable, and he's
just goofy, but it works. And his hobby is pteranodons. You know what they are? They're small flying dinosaurs. But anyway, that's the movie that introduces Baby Godzilla.
Yeah, I mean, all this talk about Baby Yoda, but what about Baby Godzilla?
Baby
I
Godzilla.
mean,
That I really like that design.
yeah,
Like the
because
Baby
I think
Godzilla
especially
design.
everyone for years, especially in the Godzilla fan magazines here, they hated Minya. I mean,
Oh yeah,
people still hate Minya.
everybody hates Minya. Minya's terrifying, like when he first hatches. But
And but
this, yeah,
this is the pamphlets that you would get at the movie theaters. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty sweet.
so these are like maybe like $7-8, and then you can get a commemorative stamp at the theater, and it has pictures from the movie. It has an introduction from like the director and producers. It has like what the movie's about, the story. It has like scenes from the movie itself, like really good photos. And like especially if you're sitting in the theater before the movie starts, you as a kid you'd probably be going through this like, oh my god, look at all these monsters, like
That's cool. Yeah.
and because I think this too. Sometimes you see things really quick in the movie and you can't rewind it when you're in the theater. So
Right.
you see more details in these
Actually,
pictures.
One of the unintentional benefits of the HBO Max deal.
Or you have like all the different weapons that Mechagodzilla has. I mean,
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
so I mean,
I
definitely.
like it when he does the like all weapons mode and just fires everything. That's pretty cool. The original did too, but it's cool in this version. Yeah, there he is. I like he always has that skeptical like eye raise. He has the eyebrow raised look like what the heck is going on?
But yeah, overall these are really cool. It has like production notes.
Yeah, those are nice.
But funny stuff too. It has like, of course, the merchandise. I mean, buy the game, buy the toys, buy the other game on Super Nintendo.
Buy the other game. Yeah, that's the other thing from this period was the beginning of Godzilla video games.
Posters, shirts, wristwatches, hats, trading cards. You don't want to be the only kid at school that doesn't have one. But I don't know. Overall, though, the battle scenes were good. I think it was the closest Godzilla came to. Oh, actually, Godzilla came close to dying a couple of times in the Heisei series. You think about it, the bacteria.
This one was pretty close. They
literally brain. If it wasn't for
they literally
blow his
they blow his brain out. Like it's pretty close to dying.
But the thing that's funny is they never exploit that ever again. I mean, it's like we almost had him that time. It's like
we know about his weakness, but with Mogera they don't even try.
It's like Dr. Evil. It's like, why don't you shoot him? No, we'll put him in a prison and we'll do this and that. It's like,
well, I guess they don't really get an opportunity to do it again because the next movie, Godzilla is kind of the good guy.
Definitely.
So even though that one guy does attack him, but at that point they're trying to fight Space Godzilla.
Well, that was a connection to I think you mentioned before, a connection to Biollante because like his brother.
Right, we didn't even talk about that, but yeah, in Biollante,
blink and you miss it.
Right, we talked about how the bacteria defeated him. So there's a whole big subplot that they develop a bacteria that eats nuclear energy, and they're developing it for future nuclear meltdown incidents. So they were ready for Fukushima like 20 years earlier.
Yeah,
but they developed some kind of like anti-nuclear energy bacteria. That's literally what it's called. It's like ANEB or something. And the one character that shoots Godzilla in the mouth with it, which is actually the shot that ends up causing him to like end the fight at the end.
Well, yeah, because his beam changes color at the end of Space Godzilla.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. But so this is back in the Biollante storyline still. So anyway, that guy shoots him in the mouth because they shoot him a bunch of times, but it doesn't.
Well, 84, they shot him with was it the cadmium?
Cadmium, yeah, that's another thing. But in the Biollante one, they shoot him a bunch of times, but it doesn't really work because they can't really penetrate his skin. And then the one that does eventually work on him is the one where that guy shoots him in the mouth. But that guy gets killed right after that because Godzilla destroys the building he's in. And then it turns out that one of the main characters in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla is that guy's older brother. And like it's this weird throwback to that character because I don't know if anybody remembers that. Like you have to be like a mega fan to even know about that guy.
That's the
Yeah,
poster. I mean,
poster.
say what you will about the movie, the poster was
Poster's cool, and that's where Trendmasters got their color design for Space Godzilla.
Yeah, now that you mention about it.
Because
Yeah,
they get all
because unless you saw the movie, maybe you could see the poster.
Right.
But
well, I think they designed them on the poster because I said earlier, the one Mechagodzilla figure is the poster version.
Okay, because I had the standard Mechagodzilla and it was like it looked just like the one in the movie.
Right. Yeah, I had that too, but there is another one.
But I never realized that until now that you mention it. That's actually makes me want the Trendmaster Space Godzilla now.
Yeah, because that one exists, and then there was also, obviously, there's that Monster Arts one that came out a couple years ago. But
yeah, that's a beautiful.
That one's official. The other one's not officially that Mechagodzilla, but it is that design. It has
because I have a B1 size of this poster. I still haven't hung it up on my wall yet because I have to get a frame big enough. But it's just like my all-time favorite piece of Godzilla art.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then, so I guess we're on the Space Godzilla now. But
so, I mean,
that one, there's a
little Godzilla in the prison in like the first 5 minutes.
The little Godzilla is like obviously my least favorite design. It's basically Minya but green.
It ain't easy being green.
But there's that one. I'm trying to think what else is going on in that movie. There's the weird subplot with the Yakuza. They kidnap Miki, and some guys like trying to use her to mind control Godzilla or something. And that's a whole subplot where they try to use some way to control Godzilla through like manipulation or something, and it just doesn't materialize. That plot goes nowhere. And then Space Godzilla shows up, and he's evil because reasons. Like they don't actually, he doesn't do anything evil. He just shows up.
I hear you.
He sets up a base in Fukuoka for some reason because that tower in Fukuoka was built the year before, and that's basically the reason. And I went there when I first came to Japan. I came to visit before I moved here, and I was in northern Kyushu, and I went to that tower in Fukuoka, and they still have like promotional stuff from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla there.
Yeah, I've never been to Fukuoka. That's one of the consulates is down there.
Yeah. But yeah, they're still talking about that movie because it was like the big promotional thing for that. That's one thing we have to talk about. Right. Yeah, that's one thing we should talk about briefly too, is that the Heisei movies always showcase whatever the big building is they showcase.
That's the thing about the movies too. I mean, the Showa series, you see building just, I guess, they had them there just to film the scenery. But I think specifically, like you hear the locations of where they are. Like I mentioned previously, Mechagodzilla 2 is where I saw Kyomizudera. It's and funny enough, too, let me see if I can share the screen.
This one has like a personal interest with us.
Yeah. So let's see. 1 second. Right here. And I'll share it. You can see my screen now?
Yeah, it's telling me it started share screen. But
okay.
I can see.
This building right here now, Rodan or Radon, flies over it, and this is in Aomori City, the capital where we live. And this right here, this triangle Dorito-looking building is called the ASPAM. It literally just ASPAMA. I don't know what it stands for, but and this is like the bridge, like, and you have the Suguru Strait, and it's just a really cool-looking building. And I never knew what it was in the movie, but when I first came to Aomori and I saw that building, I was like a bolt of light hit me. I'm like, that was in the movie, and it's like I never even knew it because like the way he said it, the English dub does not, because this prefecture is called Aomori Prefecture, and he goes, "Sir, there's a giant bird flying over like Amori or like
yeah, they say it wrong in the dub. Yeah,
and I mean it's like Hokkaido. I mean.
Yeah, and King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, but so just to show you, some cool structures though. But what building was it in? Space Godzilla, that tower.
Yeah. Fukuoka Tower is like it's a plot point in the movie because
The
Space
crystals, right?
Godzilla. Yeah, Space Godzilla makes that as his base, and in order to defeat Space Godzilla, they have to like dig underneath the tower and destroy it from the bottom, and then Godzilla knocks it over. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's like in I'm trying to think too. King Ghidorah, like one of the main buildings was the Sapporo Tower. Like there was the Panasonic Tower. Well, back then it said in katakana National, which is what Panasonic is in Japan. It's called National.
Right.
So, but then I can't remember. I think the thing from Mothra was the Ferris wheel in Osaka.
Right. Or Yokohama, I think.
That's right, Yokohama.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Pipeworks game. They showed Osaka, and they had like a Ferris wheel in there too.
Yeah. But yeah, that would Yokohama has the big Ferris wheel. Yeah, that's basically all I can say about Space Godzilla. I really like Space Godzilla's
it's
design.
an awesome.
I like the concept, but it
was not a very mobile suit.
Right.
I mean, that's I guess where the psychic powers kind of like fills in for the handicaps the suit has.
Probably, yeah.
Because that's the thing is too, as the Godzilla, like I said, Godzilla got bigger, the suit kind of got bulkier in a way, and it seemed like the movements
it's really bulky in Space Godzilla.
And like those are some thunder thighs, man.
Yeah. And then like you mentioned, he does that spiral beam at the end. I think that's a throwback to the Mechagodzilla movie, because that was like that power he picked up from Radon when he absorbed all that energy.
That's right.
For some reason, he uses it as a finisher, I guess, at that point. So I guess that's the start of Godzilla having finishers.
Well, that's like the thing is too. Like he had the nuclear pulse. Because didn't he use a nuclear pulse in one of the first two movies? It wasn't 84 Biollante. It was Biollante.
He does do it in Biollante.
Okay.
Because he gets wrapped around with a tendril. And
he didn't do that again until 2019's King of the Monsters.
Yeah. Well, he does it against King Ghidorah too. Because King Ghidorah like chokes him, and he has that.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that now that you mentioned it.
The pulse to launch it. But yeah, and Legendary series really picked up on that. Like, they're doing finishers all the time. They're doing like Mortal Kombat style,
like fatalities.
They're like full on fatalities in Legendary. But
it's like the Pipeworks thing's rage.
Yeah.
They need to bring those games back. I mean,
yeah, Heisei started the finishers, I think.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think too. What was it? Well, that was one thing too. So, what did you think of to go back in Mechagodzilla 2? What did you think of Rodan?
I really liked Rodan.
I thought the design was cool too. I mean, he looked vicious.
Yeah, it's probably
after the original.
Yeah, I really like the King of the Monsters design for Rodan, but
shame he got misused. So like to go to wrestling terms, it's like he was booked poorly. I mean,
pretty much. Although I do kind of like how he went back to his roots, because Rodan was a jerk. Like back in the 60s and stuff, he was out for himself. Yeah. And that's what he was like in King of the Monsters. And it also gave us like classic original Ghidorah too, where Ghidorah was like an ultimate villain and wasn't just a pawn for somebody else.
Yeah.
But that's another topic entirely.
Yeah.
But so back to Heisei.
So to kind of finish up with the series,
we'll have to go with the ultimate
Godzilla dies. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers. Yeah, Toho didn't care about spoilers apparently.
I mean, again, the series at that point was losing money, so they need to just kind of recoup money or go out with a bang.
Yeah. Everything, because all the marketing has that. It's just she's on everything. It was like.
I think what it is too is like I've heard a number to go back to wrestling. I'm a big wrestling nerd too. Is kind of with like a gimmick or a character. It's like I can't miss you if you don't go away. And Godzilla, I think not wore out his welcome, but I think in regards to the movies, they weren't drawing. And for people to want to see them or to go out in numbers again, there had to be a break. And then I guess with the 98, they were able to make money by selling the rights to TriStar to do it.
And it was a big marketing ploy because weirdly enough, we didn't get the movie, but apparently there was articles about it when it happened. There was like a CNN report about it and everything else, like in their marketing.
It's kind of like the thing I can kind of relate it to is I remember, I guess another example that happened later on though is like the Undertaker's. I keep bringing up wrestling. The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania. It's like we know wrestling's fake, but it's like Godzilla's not a real thing. But like when the Undertaker lost at WrestleMania, people were like genuinely shocked. It's like it was a huge development, and like on major news sources, it's like they wouldn't give two thoughts about these any other time of day.
Yeah. So with Destroya, that was the big marketing ploy. This one,
and it was actually, to my knowledge, at least anyway, during the Heisei series, it was the first theater exclusive figure they did. I mean, there are some reports that during the 70s, like some of the figures are rare, like the Megalon or the Mechagodzilla, they say some of them were theater exclusives, but it's kind of inconclusive. But this was definitely the first one you can get at the theater, or that has any kind of notoriety to it.
Yeah,
this is the Meltdown Godzilla.
Translucent plastic.
Yeah, but the thing that's cool about this though too is there are two versions. One will have a sticker with the price, which is like around 2,100 yen. But that was the one available at the cinema. Now, I'm sure because the demand was so high, if they didn't have stock at the theater, what they did is they had order forms, and you can order the figure directly from Bandai, and they would ship it to you. So the ones that don't have the sticker are the ones that were ordered through the form, which is what I got. I got this in Tokyo at Mandarake back in 2018. So these were always expensive. I mean, I got this cheaper in Japan, of course, but I remember for years, like people were paying an arm and a leg for these.
Yeah, that's
but I think probably one of the better recent designs though, I mean, Marmot did their Desugoji. I mean, that's just a cool figure.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
But I mean, some of these go crazy prices. I mean, this is like a standard one. So this one was actually the first anime film, the one that was on Netflix when it came out at Toho Cinemas. This was an exclusive. But yeah, I see some of those figures going for like $1,200. I'm like,
yeah,
too rich for my blood.
There's some crazy prices, but yeah, Destroya, for me, Destroya was the closest it got to Biollante in terms of like the way it was filmed. Like it doesn't feel like a TV movie anymore. It feels like a big budget thing. Like Mechagodzilla is good too, but this
you're
one,
emotionally involved from the start because as soon as you see Godzilla, he's already dying. I mean, like he's smoking.
Seen in Hong Kong at the very beginning of the movie. Yeah, he shows up, and then there's the big search for Junior because nobody knows what happened to him, and the island they were on got destroyed. So yeah, that's going on, and then they introduced Destroya, which actually harkens back to the original movie because it's a result of the Oxygen Destroyer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think with the crustacean or whatever it was, and it
it was like something. Yeah, some kind of started out as almost like a bacteria or something from the Precambrian period or something.
Yeah, it looked like or it was like a trilobite or something, or like
something like that. Yeah, and then it mutates, and then it turns into this really cool creature that can transform into.
It's kind of like they got some of the not to go off on a tangent, but like in the game Super Godzilla, you had Bagan. That character, and it's like originally they wanted to do him in movies before with like changing forms, and they finally kind of did that, I think, with Destroya.
Destroya is basically Bagan. Yeah, and not to get way off topic, but Space Godzilla is probably based on Super Godzilla's
definitely
design.
the shoulders and it's like the Biollante teeth.
Yeah.
But
so they did
that roar though, man, that will like just send like a chill down your spine. Just like it's like that high pitched scream, like that. It's like
he's got a really cool roar. That'll
be a good YouTube edit.
Destroya is really good. Like it's.
I think every single form of him was freaky looking. You had like the crab aggregate form.
Yeah.
and the flying form. I mean, then the final form, of course. I mean, that had to be a bulky suit.
Yeah, that's a huge suit. And then the aggregate form has the like xenomorph little mouth inside of the mouth that like pops out.
Yeah.
And there's that really gory scene where it like impales Junior. And it's just like blood coming out of his chest. Yeah, it's you really hate.
You hate Destroyer because like you're just behind Junior, and it's just like when he drops him on that stadium, and you're just like,
yeah, he basically kills him.
You're just like, no.
At that point, yeah, he just like really hates Junior for some reason. Because Junior basically dies, and then he gets revived at the end when Godzilla.
All the radiation.
Yeah.
It's like all this, like after he melts down, it's like you see all the, it's like Japan's like done all the radiation. It's like, but then you see like all the level of.
Yeah, it just drops, and then it's got Junior is like a full-grown adult in the background.
I think. Now, what's your feeling on this? Did Godzilla actually defeat Destroyer, or was that the military?
It's almost a combination of the two.
Yeah, I think that's where some people.
There's also a deleted alternate scene too that has something else with that, but I don't remember the details.
But I think people would have rather seen like Junior defeat him. Like, I think they would rather. It'd be almost be two storybook though. Like if like Godzilla, like he melted down, Junior absorbed it all, then he defeated Destroyer. It would be a little bit more satisfying though. Yeah,
I think so. Like maybe have Destroyer survive just enough, and then he gets finally.
And it's like, oh my god! Like this monster defeated Godzilla, and he's about to run rampant.
Yeah, and then Junior defeats him. But it kind of culminates everything, not only from the Heisei series, but also the original movie.
Good, actually, because now I can use the name Emiko. She makes a cameo.
Yeah, she's back again. So that, and not only she's back, but they use, I don't know if it's the same home, but it's designed to look like the home that they lived in, because there's that room where Dr. Yamane was with his Stegosaurus like skeleton and everything. That's in Godzilla vs. Destroyer. So they have like direct references to all of that stuff. Plus,
it's like it's bookends.
Yeah. Plus, that new guy who's working on micro-oxygen is kind of the new Serizawa. He's like taking his ideas
and like like all the technology aspects of it.
Right. Yeah. So he's like trying to continue Serizawa's work. He didn't have the notes because Serizawa destroyed all of his work, but he still probably worked off of videotape of it or whatever. What did exist from the Oxygen Destroyer. But it's really good. It's probably the closest one to a true sequel to the original, other than the 85. But
unless you count all the Millennium series, which tries to
get all of them, right? But the Millennium series, they're all like, oh, this is a direct sequel to the original, but it doesn't really reference the original beyond like it exists.
Yeah,
other than they use his bones to make Kiryu or something. That's like the only one directly.
And then Monster Go Roar, and then Robot Go Crazy.
Yeah, but that's into the Millennium series. But there was a lot of alternate versions of these movies. A lot of characters didn't make it into it. This is already a pretty long episode, so I don't know if we want to get into all the what ifs. Maybe save that for another one. But
definitely
one we should mention though is the fan favorite Baggin.
They try to like multiple times to try to get this thing off the ground. And
that starts with 84.
Yeah, since like 1980 they tried to reboot the series.
Right.
And, yeah, like some films, like it was a Godzilla vs. the Oscar Fortress with some kind of script that was written, and then you had Baggin. It was like 3 different forms of them.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of get the idea where Destroyer comes from, with the multiple forms that eventually turn into this big demon-looking thing. But a lot of Destroyer's design does look like Baggin's final design from the Super Godzilla. Yeah. There was also something, was there like
super ancient China? I mean, as opposed to
China. Super ancient China. My favorite time period of Chinese history, super ancient China. It's like my other favorite time period, futuristic feudal Japan. But but it's There was that, and then there was a Baggin suit that was designed for something. It
was
up
that
in,
one computer game. It was like Toho Studio Tour, and it was like it looked like a Ultraman ripoff monster. It was like gray. And
they
had
had that, and they had some other weird monster in that never showed up in anything.
Well, that's like in the Pipeworks game. They had they had one original monster, like Crystallic or something.
Mm. Yeah, Crystallic or something. There's like Obsidius or something as well, but
that was the PS2 version. I think had Obsidius.
Yeah, something like, I don't remember the details on that, but they did.
So I guess we kind of
and there was different.
We did kind of go over the pros and cons of the series. I think in some aspects the special effects were good, in some they were bad. Before we go off that, Space Godzilla asteroid scene, absolute worst.
Yeah, the asteroid scene. Nothing quite compares to that. Yeah,
this is no excuse.
No,
it was just egregious.
Especially coming off of Mechagodzilla, because Mechagodzilla's got some really good special effects, especially with the animatronics in the head. Because Godzilla's very expressive in that movie, with like the blinking eyes and his lip curls.
I think the thing about that too is it looks like a real lizard skin too. Whereas and some of the previous ones, it does look kind of rubbery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, Mechagodzilla, they really got it to work. Like the Godzilla, the animatronics. And Space Godzilla, I don't know. That scene really bad. That asteroid scene is the worst. The only scene that's a little goofy in Destroya, and it's forgivable, and I didn't even notice it until I was older, is the scene when the military's fighting the aggregates. And they're like the bigger aggregates, and they have all the tanks lined up and they're firing on them. There's one scene where it shows all of them running around, and there's a bunch in the background that are like on some kind of like track or something, and they're just like going like zigzagging back and forth like cardboard cutouts. But that's the only scene I think in Destroya that is bad. The rest are other effects are pretty solid.
Is typically lower budget looking, but the suit designs were good though. I think there's no denying the suit designs were good.
Yeah, and until Shin Godzilla came out, Heisei Godzilla was the go-to Toho Godzilla design. It still is in a lot of ways.
I think they're more accessible than even the Millennium series.
Yeah,
and I think the writing is better than Millennium, obviously.
Yeah, the Millennium series is the weakest of them all. I mean, it has a good moments. It's got GMK, which a lot of people like, but
I can do a whole episode about that.
Yeah,
but and you can do a whole episode on what could have been.
Right, and I think we will, because this episode's longer, I think, than the other ones we've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, because we can still talk about the monsters that didn't show up in this series, or did you want to hold that off till another episode?
I'm thinking we can hold off until another episode on that one, because we could cover not only the Heisei series, you could do all
Millennium.
Yeah, because you do the Millennium, and also Showa has a lot of weird what-ifs that never happened as well, especially towards the end. They kept trying to reboot it back in the 70s before we got into this era.
But overall, though, I mean, you have the show and you have the Heisei. Which do you go back to more often?
For the longest time, it was always like when I was a kid, obviously it was Showa because it's all like new. And then for a long time, from like my teenager until the last couple of years or so, it was like always Heisei.
I think because some of the Showa stuff, you can laugh at it because they didn't take it seriously. Like, the dubs weren't taken seriously, so you kind of be embarrassed to show your friends them. It's like, oh, look at the Heisei stuff and all the beam fighting.
Yeah, the Heisei stuff is cool. I always show my friends that.
And now as an adult, you look at it, it's like, the show was better.
Yeah, show is. I like both. I go back to both. The series I look at the least is Millennium.
Yeah.
Showa to Heisei, it's all good for me. Like, I like all of those. Heisei, one thing we always want to put in like a little bit of nostalgia or personal stuff with these. It's kind of the point of this. I do remember as a kid, as a teenager, like before I go to school, before I go to school, I'd always watch the like fight scenes from the Heisei Godzilla movies for some reason. I was like obsessed with watching the fight scenes in those movies. So I do remember doing that a lot. especially the Mechagodzilla fight, and I did like the Space Godzilla fight at the end with Mogira and Godzilla teaming up, and
yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's one of those. Mogira definitely. He's supposedly stronger than Mechagodzilla, but he doesn't prove it on the street.
He doesn't
He
seem
gets
like
whomped. I mean,
yeah. Well, he doesn't.
In the
They say
beginning.
he is, but he isn't, because Mechagodzilla has the ability to absorb Godzilla's heat beam, so that kind
That's
of
true.
makes him better. But yeah, it's. And then talking about what ifs and things that never were, I'm pretty sure Mogira was supposed to be in the Destroya movie at one point, and never was.
Well,
because
that's what
the
I think. That's why
manga version,
that's where they brought back Super X. They do Super X 3 because you didn't see
right?
Super X since Biollante.
Yeah, because they brought in Super X3, and now it looks like a big jet instead of whatever it was.
Looked like the was the Enterprise escape pod ships or whatever.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. Yeah, and yeah, because the other thing too, we won't talk about them in detail here, but each one of the Heisei movies has a manga adaptation. And
Yeah, I have.
They're different from the actual movies.
Yeah, I have the King Ghidorah one because that was re-released recently. The Mothra one was too, but I didn't pick it up. But I have an original copy of the Mechagodzilla one because it has the poster art. But I definitely still have to brush up on my Japanese studies to be able to flip through it easier.
Right. But I think the Destroya manga has Mogira in it. Okay. So I think there's 2 Mogiras actually in the Destroya manga. So I don't know if they had some idea to have another Mogira or what's going on with that.
It's like Mechagodzilla 2, Mogira 2.
Yeah, Mogira 2. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Because I think there's a regular Mogira and a black Mogira or something like that.
Well, that's like they had the Trendmasters figures had that all blue Mogira.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if some of that stuff was early scripts and then it made. Because I wonder if the reason why the mangas are different is maybe they're based on an earlier script.
Possibly, or they just
did their own thing.
Did their own thing to kind of just sell them.
Yeah.
Because I have to look and research exactly when the manga came out. They came out before the films came out, or it was after?
After, yeah, I don't know. They could have been kind of like novelizations or something where they show up like.
It's like you read like any of the probably. I'm not sure if the Thing had a novelization, but I know Escape from New York did. And there was just so much more exposition in it that explained certain characters that were on screen for a second, and it had whole backstories.
Yeah, I don't know if the Thing does, because the Thing is based on a novel. So
yeah, Who Goes There, which was a short story.
That's a really interesting topic in its own right. But yeah, there's definitely. Yeah, so I think if there's anything else you want to say about the Heisei series, I think we kind of.
So I think it was nice to see. Satsuma go from being a baddie in the Showa series to being the hero in the Heisei series. So that was pretty cool. And I think he's the one guy that was actually able to play the monster throughout that whole series. Because Nakajima played it up through Gaigan, and then you had a few different guys filling the roles. Then Satsuma was from 84 through Destroya. Because in the Millennium, I think it went between... I know Kitagawa did a few movies, but I think then you had I forgot his name last time, but I think it was Yoshida. Was it Yoshida? The guy who did the Metal Gear mocap. He was in GMK.
Okay.
Then there was another actor who did I think 2000.
Yeah. I know the suit actors from Showa to Heisei, but I don't really know the ones in the Millennium that well.
But it's research for us to do.
Yeah.
But overall, though, I think it's movies we can still go back and watch and enjoy.
Yeah, even the bad ones I still rewatch.
We still watch the bad Showa ones.
That's true. Yeah, I mean,
but every movie at least has one thing to offer. So.
Right. Yeah. There's something good about each one. None of them are all terrible.
So. But anyway, though, so next time I'm sure we'll either discuss if any new Godzilla news does happen between now and I guess December.
We definitely have a release date. They're probably going to stick to now. As long as that HBO Max deal stays in place, it's definitely coming out May 21st. They're not going to push it back.
Well, I know definitely February, March, Bandai's releasing new stuff, so I'm sure other stuff will get announced too.
Right.
But I think we'll probably have a bit of a break to either look back on the Millennium series or go back even further and see, other than Godzilla, what other Toho stuff or even other companies was really good.
Right. Yeah, you could do a whole retrospective on. Well, yeah, you could do a whole detailed thing on the Showa series. You could do Showa non-Godzilla movies because the Showa series is a whole string of those.
Yeah, which was one thing that was absent other than, was it Yamato Takeru?
Yeah, there's Yamato Takeru, which a lot of people don't even know exists. And
other than the 8-headed looking Ghidorah, but it's like,
yeah, Orochi. And then there is of course, the Mothra trilogy.
Yeah, that was really it. I mean, whereas during the Showa era, you had a lot of different,
right from the very beginning,
eventually merged into the Godzilla series.
Yeah, because you had Rodan, Varan, Mothra. Atragon,
Frankenstein,
Gargantua's, Yogg, which never
Atragon
almost fit in. Yeah.
Well, actually, Yogg Monster in Space would happen in Millennium series.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Kameba's ends up in there. Plus, Gazora's in the Nintendo game.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Yeah, for some reason.
But anyway, so we'll have to narrow it down. But I think we pretty much
we'll figure it out.
Encapsulated our nostalgia for the Heisei series, and again, think why a lot of other people relate to it too, or still go back and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we'll have to compare '98 to future releases in the future as well, and see how it stacks up.
Definitely do a '98 versus 2014 or something.
Yeah. Or Legendary versus Shin Godzilla, because that's what's in the current viewpoint.
Yeah, all three you could do actually. So, all right, I think that'll kind of wrap it up for this one.
Definitely. So anyway, guys, I'm Brian Sudol,
and I'm Sean Emmerich.
And thanks again for watching the Doki Doki Daikaiju Podcast. See you soon.
See you.